Welcome aboard the Read Me a Story Dad podcast, where dreams take flight, laughter reigns supreme, and there's magic in every page. Let's dive into today's wonderful tale together, starting right now. Welcome to Read Me a Story Dad, where there's a father's love in every page. My name is Brent, and today we'll be reading Yuck, That's Not a Monster by Angela McAllister, published by Little Tiger Press in 2010. Mr. and Mrs. Monster were very proud of their 3 eggs. Mr. Monster kept them warm by huffing with his hot, stinky breath. Mrs. Monster screeched at them. One stormy night, the first egg cracked, and out climbed an ugly little monster with prickly spikes, snarly fangs. Arg! He's frightful, sighed Mr. and Mrs. Monster happily. So that's what they called him. Then the second egg cracked, and out climbed another ugly little monster with horny spines and bristly warts. Oh, she's horrid, gasped Mr. and Mrs. Monster happily. So that's what they called her. Then the third egg shook a bit. Frightful and Horrid gave it a poke, and out crept something very soft and pink. Ugh, he's sweet, said the little monsters. Let's squash him. Well, he's not what we expected, said Mrs. Monster. He's a bit of a shock. Let's throw him in the trash can, said Mr. Monster. Suddenly there was a crash of thunder. Mama, cried the fluffy one, and jumped into Mrs. Monster's arms. She looked down at her bundle of sweetness. I think we'll keep him, she said. He may look different, but inside he's a monster, just like us. So they called him Little Shock. Each day, Frightful and Horrid grew hairier and scarier. They learned how to spit, to hiss, and snarl, and scratch. But Little Shock grew more fluffy. He liked to gurgle and roly-poly and twinkle his blue eyes. He loved his brother and sister and followed them everywhere. If you want to play with us, you need to be wild and rambunctious, said Frightful and Horrid. They showed him how to howl at the moon until it hid behind a cloud, but Little Shock was afraid of the dark. They showed him how to squash and stomp and trample, but Little Shock saw a worried worm and sat down to give it a hug. Ugh, sneered Frightful and Horrid. He's just a cutie pie. Soon Frightful and Horrid were bold enough to go monstering in the woods. You must take your brother with you, insisted Mrs. Monster. Frightful and Horrid snorted grumpily, but they put Little Shock in a wagon, hid him under a blanket, and tugged him along. In the woods, Frightful leaped out at a fox and made his fur turn white. Horrid pounced on a wild pig and made it jump into a tree. They had a wonderful time. Little Shock hugged his blanket and played peekaboo with a mouse. What shall we do now? Said Frightful. Let's find something big to scare, said Horrid. Something big rustled in the bushes ahead, and so they crept up on it. Frightful and Horrid saw a hairy hump. They winked at each other, took a deep breath, and roared. But the hairy hump was only a little bit of a big monster. It snarled and flashed his fiery eyes. Who dare roar at me? Frightful and Horrid were too terrified to run away. Their spines shriveled up and their claws curled up. Suddenly, the big monster spotted Little Shock. Ooh, cotton candy, he said. Little Shock stared up at the monster's face. His big blue eyes grew wider and wider. Then, mwah! He gave the monster a kiss right on the cheek. Yuck! The big monster wailed and dropped Little Shock in horror. He was so afraid that his fur turned to frizzle and his bristles fell out. Help! He cried. It's adorable! And he ran away crying for his mommy. Frightful and Horrid couldn't believe their eyes. You kissed him! You kissed him! They laughed. Horrid swung her little brother high in the air and set him on Frightful's shoulders. Maybe being cute is useful after all, she said, giving him a pinch. Little Shock just purred happily. Come on, Frightful said proudly. Let's go home and all kiss mom and dad. I hope you enjoyed the book Yuck! That's Not a Monster by Angela McAllister. Remember, you're loved, you're extraordinary, and you're more than enough.